Hey loves, it's Susie from sacredwithsusie.com, and today I want to share a really important piece with you about masculine, feminine energetics, feminine embodiment, how to be and become and thrive as a feminine woman with integrated masculine and feminine energy inside of us. So every single one of us, man or woman, has masculine and feminine energy inside of us. The masculine energy is the productive, doing, assertive, directioned, action energy. And the feminine is the flow, the fluidity, the emotions, the play, the pleasure, the surrender, the openness, the expansion. The feminine is the body, the feeling, the senses, and the masculine is the mind, the thinking, the ego, the problem solving, the logistics, the practical, right? The feminine is the mystical, the emotional, the illogical, the sometimes chaotic. The masculine is the logical, the structured, the rigid, the discipline, okay? And we all need both energies. We all absolutely need both energies inside of us, and we want these energies to live in balance and harmony inside of us. But the problem is that in most people, I'm going to be speaking about women because that's who I work with, most women, these energies are not balanced and harmonized, and they're not acting together. They're not acting in a synergistic relationship. They're actually battling each other the whole time. And so we have this disconnection within our energies, within our systems. And so things aren't functioning. We have, what's the word? Like a disconnect within our own beings. We're not in harmony within our own beings. Things are acting in opposition to each other. One of my beautiful friends explains this kind of analogy of like, it's like having your foot on the gas pedal, the accelerator, and the brake at the same time, right? So like the wheels are just spinning and nothing's really happening, nothing's really moving. So what is quite common in this day and age is for women to have an excess of unintegrated masculine energy. So this is the productive energy, the doing energy, and society as a whole generally tends to reward or celebrate masculine energy in terms of like, you know, success, achieving, right? Like achieving things, doing things, the intellect, the mind, intelligence, money, like achieving success is really celebrated. It's celebrated a lot more than feeling, than joy, than pleasure, than play, right? Even if you just ask, like, you know, innocently in conversations, when we meet someone, when we talk to someone, we're like, what have you been up to? What have you been doing? What have you been doing, right? Like, what have you been achieving? What have you been doing? As opposed to, how are you feeling? How have you been feeling in your body? What have you been doing for joy? What are you enjoying at the moment, right? So on a whole, holistically, society tends to favor masculine energy and, like celebrates it, right? So what tends to happen in women is that we have an excess of this masculine energy and we start to place our worthiness on productivity, on getting things done, on achieving, on success, on external success over internal success, right? And this can look like an overactive mind that is, you know, has perfectionist tendencies, really high expectations on yourself, or rigid rules about how you should act, really disciplined and like highly self-critical. This can also look like, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so excess masculine energy in women is, this like over emphasis on productivity and doing as a measure of our worthiness, of our internal level of worth. and high inner critic and the need for external validation and all these kinds of things, right? And so what happens is that's like an overactivation of our masculine energy, and it's not divine masculine energy. It's like unhealed or unintegrated masculine energy. And so it's not acting in service of our feminine energy. In fact, it's suppressing or judging our feminine energy, which is our emotions. And so we can feel weak when we feel emotions, or we can feel bad if we need to rest, right? This is where like we don't allow ourselves rest because we don't view it as productive. So that's when the masculine is not, it's not supporting the feminine need and desire to rest and play and receive and experience pleasure. It's viewing that as not productive, right? And so what do I want to say next? The opposite can also be true if we have an excess of feminine energy, or a feminine energy, a lot of feminine energy that's not balanced by divine masculine energy, as we can be really chaotic and super emotional and go through these highs and lows of emotion and feel like we're always on this roller coaster ride of emotion where we're constantly trying to regulate ourselves and solve triggers, and like we're constantly in this like chaos, right? And there's no structure in our lives. There's no discipline in our lives. Everything's just like messy and chaotic, right? That would be an excess of feminine energy, not balanced by masculine energy. So what we want is to create inner balance and harmony, inner union within our own beings of our masculine and feminine energy, so that they're acting in harmony and our masculine is actually supporting our feminine. And so the way we do this is by getting our masculine energy, our inner masculine, into a space of devotion to our inner feminine desires. So the feminine, like I said, desires to rest, to receive, to experience pleasure, to play, to be creative, to play, to like anything to do with the senses, to indulge the senses, like eating delicious chocolates, right? Smelling flowers, playing with flowers, using essential oils, painting and creating, touch, self-pleasure, dance, looking at beautiful things, whether that's like I love like luxury and like beautiful spaces and creating beautiful spaces, but also nature, like being in awe of nature. This is all indulging the senses. Anything that indulges the senses, taste, touch, smell, sight, feeling, this activates and fills up the feminine energy, right? And so the feminine wants to be in this sensual experience, indulging all of her senses in these things. So what we want is, instead of our masculine making those things bad or wrong, we want our masculine to be in service and devotion to these desires of the feminine. So what that looks like practically is like, say, I'll give an example from my personal life. I really enjoy having a morning practice, a morning ritual. I've got like my little altar set up there with my Buddha, and I have flowers that I pick from my garden every morning and place there. It's all really intentional and sacred and beautiful, and I have all of these oils, and I just love it. I really genuinely enjoy this morning ritual, and I sit and I meditate, right? And so the practice of receiving that and being in that is nourishing my feminine. But if my inner masculine wasn't in devotion and in service to my inner feminine would just like get up whenever she wants and just like laze around and be like, oh, I'll do my morning practice soon. And then she'll like go make a tea and then like spend time with her partner, and then all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock and it's just floaty and there's no structure, right? That was if there is no masculine energy holding the feminine. So what we want is, we know what the feminine wants. In this case, my feminine wants to experience the morning ritual that she loves and enjoys. But my inner masculine needs to be in service of that desire, get on board for that desire, and sit my ass down in my seat every morning, get up at the right time every morning so that I have time to do my morning practice before I have to start the day. Sit myself down, create that container, create the boundaries around who I need to tell in my life that this is my time in the morning to do what I need to do, to maybe get up earlier than my partner, to make sure that he doesn't disturb me in my practice. That's the masculine creating the container for the feminine to then experience and enjoy the beautiful practice that she loves to experience, right? So that's an example of the masculine, the inner masculine, being in devotion and in service to the feminine desires. Another way that the masculine can be unintegrated and in opposition or butting against the inner feminine desires is when we actually start to feel into our dreams and goals and desires, like the real, true dreams and desires of our heart, like the biggest picture vision that we could envision and dream up for ourselves in our lives, right? That's often incredibly heart-centered, like what our heart really truly wants in this lifetime, right? And then when we allow ourselves to dream into that, we can feel it in our heart and in our body, and then a thought comes into the mind that says, you can't have that, that's not possible, right? And that's the masculine, ego, analytical, logical mind acting in opposition to the feminine desire, creating duality, creating distortion, creating that gas pedal, accelerator brake analogy, right? Where things aren't in coherence, our energy isn't directed in the same place, it's acting in opposition to each other. So the way that we can get our masculine on board with our feminine desire, because as a woman, our desire is the most potent energy that we hold. Our desires are magnetic. Our wombs hold the portals of creation. They create and birth new life. We are creatrixes. Creators. We create. That is what the feminine does. The feminine's desires are magnetic, but when our masculine mind, our inner masculine, is in opposition to that feminine desire, we can't actualize that desire into reality because our energy is acting in opposition to each other, right? So we want to get the masculine mind on board with the feminine desire. And the way that we do that is by noticing that fear or limiting belief of the mind saying, you can't have that, that's crazy, that's impossible, you're not someone that can ever achieve that. Noticing that thought and flipping it into a question and flipping it into a curious, gentle, inquisitive question. So say your desire is to have a house out in the forest. Have a house out in the forest that you own, a really beautiful house out in the forest that you own, and you have land, right? And then your mind is like, how the fuck am I ever going to achieve or receive that? I don't make enough money. My partner doesn't make enough money for that. The prices of houses are XYZ, interest rates, blah, 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 blah. The ego mind is using its very productive and logical energy to cut and squash and dampen the desire, and that puts out the magnetic fire of the desire of the feminine, right? So instead of that process, what we want to do is flip that into a question. So say your desire is to own this beautiful house out in the forest, and your mind goes, that's not possible, money, blah, 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 da, da, da. So what we want to do is flip that into a question so that the mind is then asking, I wonder how we do that. I wonder how we get the money or source the money to buy a house out in the forest. I wonder how we receive this house out in the forest. I wonder what that house looks like. I wonder what that house feels like. I wonder, what happens in our lives to align so that we can receive this house in the forest that we own outright, right? So now the mind is starting to get inquisitive, and now that logical, beautiful, problem-solving, potent energy of the masculine is on board to help you solve this problem of how, right? Instead of acting against the desire, squashing the desire, putting out the magnetic flame of the desire, now we're allowing the desire to be there, and we're getting the mind on board with problem solving the how. Problem solving how, I wonder how that happens. I wonder what we need to do to get there. I wonder what we do to get there. I wonder who gets on board to help us. And now it's like starting to create this energy, right? And we just sit with that and we allow that. And next time, we tune into our desire and the limiting thought arises, we flip it into a question again. And we just continue to play with this. We continue to be with this as we allow our desires to take form, and we give ourselves full permission to dream and feel our desires and be with our desires and follow our desires instead of squashing them, right? This is the beautiful power of the feminine energy is in our desire. And so as feminine women, what we want to do is we want to fill ourselves up first.